Afternoon. Hope you were listening to the show yesterday. If you were, you learned that Ole Miss would not be making any sort of a change at its head coaching position. We told you very clear. Now, I guess I couched it in terms of saying I think this to be true. I mean, maybe that's just a lesson learned from speaking in absolutes. But the information was good that Mike Bianco was going to be back.
Man, you were direct. Mike
Bianco was going to be back for his 25th season. I do think, and I have not read anything yet. I know that there are some stories that are popping out there. Chase Parham does an amazing job covering Ole Miss baseball, and he's got a story that's out there right now. I think he and I probably talked to some of the same people, and information lines up. I have not yet read what Chase has written. This may be in his story. It may not be. I think there is going to be an addition to the coaching staff. I don't know how to couch that, right? I mean, I don't know if that means a reorganization. I don't know if it means a shifting of duties. I have not gotten 100% clarity on that. But I do think you are going to see an addition to Mike Bianco's coaching staff soon. I mean, certainly prior to next season, obviously. But, I mean, you know, in the coming days, weeks, I think that that's going to happen. And the expectations, we talked about this yesterday. Because, hey, Dad, you asked me point blank, what does Ole Miss got to do next year? And yeah. I don't think I hem-hawed. I think they need to be at or above 500. They need to host a regional next year. And I think you watch this Mississippi State team this year. I'm not trying to make this Ole Miss Mississippi State, but the situations are so incredibly similar. 2 years removed from a College World Series team. There's a lot of pressure to make a move in the offseason. Athletic director decides to stay put. Makes the expectations going forward very clear. And, hey, Dad, you thought that this Mississippi State team needed to be above 500 in league play and that they needed to host a regional. It's going to work out that way, but once it became evident that Mississippi State was going to be an NCAA tournament team, I'm not sure that, you know, they were above 500 in league play, but if they were a 2 seed somewhere, you saw so much progress this season, there wasn't going to be a change. I don't know that you lock into that one way or the other with Ole Miss baseball next year, but they need to be a heck of a lot better than they've been the last 2 seasons. Not saying they got to win a national championship, not saying they got to get back to Omaha, but they've got to be a whole lot better than they have been the last 2 years. They probably need to have a winning record in the SEC, and hosting a regional would be a really, really good thing. If it's some weird year where the RPI gets funky and they end up as a 2 seed, but they played really well and they played especially well down the stretch to get to 16 or 17 wins, but for some reason they're not hosting, okay. But that's so far off in the weeds. They have to be better. And I'm under the impression that those expectations have been laid out pretty clearly to Mike Bianco.
So I don't think you can answer this right now. When everybody hears addition to the staff, their first thought is, well, there is no pitching coach because that has been Bianco. If you're adding a staff member, that's the thing that you don't have. That would be something that you could at least sell to people, right? But I don't know, and nobody reads press releases. I don't even know how you do this, but pitching wasn't the only issue. And you can chalk up some of their pitching issues to injury. I mean, they lost their Friday night ace 2 weeks before the season began. And then a guy that was supposed to be a weekend starter, what was it, an oblique strain that cost him weeks? Lower back injury?
Yeah.
So there's another one. They were by far the worst defensive team in the SEC, and they stunk at the plate too. So, you know, if it is a pitching coach, people will buy that. That's a good thing. People at least will be like, okay, that's a material thing that can get me to buy back in or to get me on board with this could work. I think that it would serve them well to address publicly how they're going to improve in other areas besides just going to run it back and hope for the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Because they were bad in all three phases of the game, not just pitching.
They were. And I mean, that's kind of the point. They've got to be better next year.
Yeah.
And better means more wins, fewer losses. But how do you get better? Well, you got to be better offensively. You got to be better defensively. You got to be better on the mound. Ole Miss has got to be better in every phase of the game if they are going to be better on the scoreboard. And the scoreboard is ultimately what you're measured by. I mean, heck, I don't know, Borky, if they hit 260 next year and they field it at 960, but the pitching staff's really good and they win 17 games and host a regional, I mean, who
Nothing
really
else matters.
cares how you got there?
Nobody.
I mean, the scoreboard is – I mean, Mississippi State does not just scare you to death offensively, but they've been good enough offensively, good enough defensively, and good enough on the mound to get to the